Two Guys, One Shaker Cup podcast, hosted by Joshua Shaw and Ryan Buckeye.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome inside the Two Guys, One Shaker Cup podcast. It's known around the world. Actually, Josh, just down in South Beach, Boca Raton, Florida, took a picture with the affiliate manager over at Redcon One with a shaker bottle making its rounds on the internet. It's funny to see how many people actually listen and love the name. What also is funny, Josh, is I just realized how small your head is. I'm looking at Josh across the screen right now. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, he's got a snapback on, and he's got every button of the snapback part of his hat. And then I'm looking at mine, and I have 4. So I either have a giant head, Josh, or yours just fucking tiny. I have no idea.
In terms of a New Era hat, I think I wear 7 1/8, so it's pretty small. It's not, it's not super small, but it's definitely a lot smaller than your
That's
head.
what you tell the ladies. I get it. Get it. Exactly. Today we're going to talk about a topic that we've sort of touched on in the past in terms of personal branding, but we're going to talk more or less about if you actually own a business and how to leverage the different social media platforms to grow your actual business. And we know that not every business is a quote-unquote personal brand. So how do you leverage each individual platform to be successful, I guess, in business? And the thing to preface is Josh and I aren't mastermind social media marketers, but we've also been able to use the appropriate platforms to grow our individual businesses. In your case, Josh, with LinkedIn, for instance, your business is your personal brand, but it's interesting because we don't spend a lot of time outside of Facebook and Instagram at this point, in today's age. But there are social media platforms we do YouTube, obviously, but Pinterest still exists, and it's still very popular for a lot of brands. LinkedIn is I still think an underdeveloped, an under-tapped social media platform. So let's start with LinkedIn, Josh, because I'll post something on LinkedIn and it'll get 50 likes, and it's Jesus, I don't even get 50 likes on Facebook sometimes. And so the exposure on LinkedIn for you and your business makes complete sense because you have consulting services, but you've also posted some really good informative videos just on dietary supplements or Vitamin Shop or just individual niche topics that do really well.
Yeah, for me, this has been kind of a thing that I've told people for the longest time, and this is over probably the last 4 to 5 years, is that LinkedIn is extremely undervalued in terms of the overall social media kind of platforms. And I think one of the most important things about LinkedIn, at least for a creator or somebody that's in business or trying to create some noise in their business, is that they actually give you some stats without having to pay for anything around your organic reach, which comparable to some of the other platforms, you really don't really know how many people are seeing your posts or your articles or whatever that is. You could see that there's some type of maybe percentage on Facebook or Instagram that'll say that you only get organic reach now, 6 to 7% or something like that. But on LinkedIn, it actually just shows you how far that post has kind of went out there. Also kind of a lot of stats around who saw it from a standpoint of the level of the professional, the company in which the professional works, what was the location of the professional that saw it. So there's all these different stats for me as a nerd that's super interesting, because then that helps me really understand who am I reaching, what kind of content maybe they would like to see more of. Because if I'm seeing a ton of maybe people from GNC or maybe Glambia or something like that, I know if I have certain topics that are close to home for them, I'm going to get a ton more initial engagement, and then it's going to kind of work with it. But for my specific fitness-related type of brand, obviously it's with consulting, and consulting is obviously a professional service. So my home is in LinkedIn. That's kind of where the bread and butter is at. That might not be necessarily where most people would think to go first or to go at all. Mm-hmm. But I know over the last couple of years that I've been working with some different entrepreneurs, I have kind of peppered in the kind of comments of, hey, I don't really see you using LinkedIn all that much. Why not? And you sort of figure out what the heck's going on. But a lot of entrepreneurs, supplement brand owners or retail chain owners or things like that, they're not utilizing that as an appropriate social channel because for whatever reason, I think to your point, we default to maybe the most popular ones are the ones that maybe get the most attention right now, which is, Facebook or Instagram or maybe YouTube. But LinkedIn's kind of, to me, a sleeping giant. I think it's one of these areas where if you can utilize it correctly, it could be a monster for your business.
I agree, man. I mean, in terms of a personal use, I love going to LinkedIn at least once a day, in the morning, even in the afternoon, just to see like what people are up to and like where they're at. Because for us, like we both work within brands that we need to, we can find people on LinkedIn that are the direct contact points. But, you brought up, you worked with entrepreneurs and you kind of poked at them and said, like, why aren't you using them? And case in point, Mark Lobleiner even has given you credit, talked about like he had not used LinkedIn really until discussing with you, and now he uses it a lot for the outright bar, and that and the exposure there with him. I think LinkedIn has probably even gotten him meetings with like holiday gas stations, or at least got him like in front of the right people to expand his brand. So if you're a brand owner and you think like you need to use LinkedIn as a tool to promote your brand to consumers, you might be able to promote your brand to a buyer at Target or a buyer at a C-store somewhere. Like that is massively big if they discover your product or discover your service through a LinkedIn post. Because what's interesting about LinkedIn too is like when you tag somebody, their extended network is more apt to see it versus Facebook and Instagram at this point. So if I tag at Josh Shaw on Instagram, Josh Shaw's friends aren't going to see that fucking post. Like unless you share it, they're not going to see it. Same with Facebook now. Like if I tag you in a Facebook post, some of your friends might see it, but I mean, as a mention, but now on LinkedIn, it's like it goes in front of your people. I can't tell you how many times I posted something through FI on LinkedIn that I have random people that are not part of my network comment or like that I've never even known in my life that I eventually connect with, and then we develop a relationship. But you probably have the same thing too. You probably, a lot of people within this space, a lot of professionals, because that's who you work with. But the amount of comments and engagement that you get on some of your posts, even this podcast, you post this podcast on there and we'll get 50 likes and a bunch of engagement. I don't know half the people. Do you know everybody who comments on your stuff?
At this point, no. I mean, there was a point where I was very picky in terms of like actually needing to know. And that also was kind of the evolution of LinkedIn in general, where before it was really if you worked with somebody or you knew them, that was the only connections that you had. Now it's more common for people to add connections of like common interests or common industries or, those types of things. So over the, last so many years that the evolution of LinkedIn has kind of moved, I have not completely known all of the people that I connect with, but it's always fun when I'm at like trade shows or conferences and somebody comes up to me out of nowhere and says like, "Oh, hey, I love your content," and then they say their name and then I connect the dots like, "Oh yeah, like yeah. You engage all the time," but like I didn't know them in person, so it's kind of that backwards type of a situation. I don't want people to like kind of like pigeonhole LinkedIn if you're not like a professional service or maybe you're not like an entrepreneur of like a consumer packaged good, because I also think it's underutilized from even like a fitness professional, like a trainer or something like that. Yep. Now, you wouldn't want to post about, like, shirtless photos or things like that. Now, every once in a while you see some of those things, but I don't think that's necessarily the place for you to like show off your body. It's more about, okay, you have this skill set of training people or diet or nutrition. There's a lot of professionals that are struggling with those same things, but in the context of their work life or, trying to figure out how to do maybe a 5-minute or 10-minute workout in between their meetings or something like that. So if you can somehow target the audience, LinkedIn being such a professional kind of social media, if you can put it towards that, I think you have a ton of runway for people to be like, dang, okay, that's something new. Then they contact you. Maybe you have some type of service that helps business professionals get in shape or eat better, or whatever it is. I mean, I think that it's just a ton of opportunity that nobody's really even thinking about. They're just sitting there and thinking, well, I'm not, the operations manager at this company, so I don't need to be on there. I'm a fitness trainer or whatever. There's so much opportunity in LinkedIn, but I think we'll see across all the other platforms we're going to talk about, there's a ton of opportunity that people are missing as well.
Yeah, and I think even just one final point on LinkedIn, you mentioned that too. Like a lot of these companies, if you're developing ebooks and like training plans to like be a lead gen tool for your business, why not use LinkedIn? I mean, they need workout plans too. Like a working professional needs to still work out. You can create a specific workout plan for corporate America users. I mean, I love LinkedIn. I can't give LinkedIn enough credit. I mean, it got me jobs in the past. It got me in contact with the right people. It's gotten me business through Fitness Informant. Obviously, it's gotten you business. And to your point on our podcast, I get people saying, love your podcast with Josh Hall. And I'm thinking like, well, who are you? I've never met you, right? But like, it's because they've, they discovered it on LinkedIn. Another platform underutilized, but maybe rightfully so, is Twitter. Twitter historically used to be 140 characters. They since expanded to 280, which I thought was a mistake. I don't like it. I like the short and sweet, to the point. For me, I used Twitter personally more as sort of like a news source for football and different things like that. I'm 32 years old. I don't read the fucking newspaper, so I use Twitter. Like I would see what our president is tweeting, which is a lot, and then you scroll through everything going on. But brands, for the most part, from a brand side of things, I don't see it a lot. I see somebody like Dan from Ghost doing it personally, and then doing some stuff with Ghost. But really, I don't see brand owners or brands engage a lot on Twitter or promote their stuff on Twitter. And maybe it's because I'm not looking in the right places. But I don't sit and check Twitter notoriously at all, like I do with Instagram and Facebook. But I mean, when I check it, I don't see anything.
It is a very tough platform for brands, at least from my perspective. When I talk to brands around social media, or the conversation just turns towards social media, and we talk about Twitter, I always kind of consider that being a customer service kind of place. Like people want to be able to get a hold of you as quick as possible, and sometimes they'll message you through Facebook or Instagram or whatever, but a lot of other people maybe will make a comment or will directly message you on Twitter. So to me, it's also like a customer service type of an extension. For me as just a consumer of social media, I agree. I use it as like a news source. It's the most up-to-date news source, even like locally. When there's something happening downtown, I hear a bunch of sirens or something going on. A lot of times I'll just check Twitter for different trending topics in Austin to see did something happen or whatever, because that's going to be much quicker than me waiting until the 5 o'clock news or the 10 o'clock news or whatever that is. So for me, that's kind of how I've utilized it over the years. It's tough because I don't spend a bunch of time on Twitter to see what other people are doing. I post several articles a day and things that I'm reading. I have like a plug-in on my browser that basically when I'm done reading something, I find it interesting, I just kind of click share and it shares on Twitter. So for me, that's just my way of kind of contributing. And then through the engagement there, if I get some likes or I get some people asking about there, then I'll engage there. But for the most part, I don't do a very good job on Twitter as well. And that's mostly because if I am breaking up my day throughout social media and trying to figure out where's my most value at, a lot of times I don't find the most value for me personally on Twitter because of the noise, and I just get caught up in some weeds and I start getting down some wormholes that I don't want to be in. And to me, I just have found that it's not as useful as other platforms. And I feel like probably a lot of other fitness-based or fitness-related type of companies or businesses probably feel similar because of the nature of it just being short comments. You really can't create a bunch of education. You can't create a ton of really thought-provoking conversation or anything like. I don't know. To me, it just has never been the platform that I have focused the most on. But I know people have made tons of business or personal brand from Twitter over the years. It's just, to me, I don't know. It's just not for me.
I thought you made a great point in there in terms of customer service. I think it's a phenomenal platform for that. I mean, I've used it specifically myself for Sprint before and Beats by Dre, where I tweet, at their service on there and they get back to me quick, and we do it through DM via chat because, listen, nobody wants to pick up the fucking phone and sit on hold for an hour. Nobody wants to. Do you ever try calling Delta before during time where you can't get them on the phone, or an airline? Jesus Christ. So it's nice to be able to actually have that interchange through a DM, which Twitter's a great place for it. Twitter's also a great place if you're going to have that customer service conversation to showcase your skills for the world to see. This is an opportunity for you to sell your brand as a customer-centric brand. Are you going to tweet out there for the world to see, Josh Hall? Fuck off. You're not going to do it. No, you're going to take the right steps, I hope, to rectify a situation in which you probably had messed up. And we've seen brands on both sides of this before, basically outside of our industry. But we have seen brands handle things terrible on Twitter. And there's a ton of blowback. So you have to be careful with it. But if you do it correctly and you stick to whatever values you have in terms of customer service, you can become a champion brand real quick with customers. And that word of mouth that people said, remember, you see that Twitter exchange between brand A and this customer, and they, Whirlpool bought them a new washer or whatever the hell it is. Like, it's a really cool tool for that. The other tool I think it could be cool for that I haven't seen a lot of is Instagram has in their stories, and you've seen this, like the questions feature, right? Where you can ask me anything questions. Like, Twitter's an opportunity for that too. Like, ask the professional. Somebody like Jay Cutler, who owns his own supplement line now too. He could do a Q&A, and all those show up on Twitter so people can scroll through and read all the responses to it. I've seen that in other industries. Like, I come from the pro wrestling world, so pro wrestlers do it all the time. Like, hey, I have 15 minutes to spare at the airport. Hit me with some questions. And you see all these questions. Like, why? We can do that as a brand. But, I mean, I don't see it a lot. And, again, I think to your point, Twitter's not the first app I open in the morning. In fact, I don't open Twitter till probably 10:30, 11 o'clock, and then I see what I missed, and it's always Mark Lobauer yelling at a bunch of people, and then I call it a day. So, I mean, then I go off of it. But, I mean, I think there is an opportunity specifically on the customer service side, if you are a brand, to leverage Twitter a little bit more, saying, like, listen, where's your order at? Your order wasn't correct. Like, tweet us at this. Have somebody at your place that is educated and responsible with proper responses, and make it a win. Make it a point of differentiation for your business, so that way people can see what you're about. So let's talk. I mean, we left the two giants. We're probably not going to spend any time on TikTok because, honestly, I just got TikTok like 3 months ago, and I've posted 4 things. So, but I will say, let's go.
That's more than me. I saved my username on there,
yeah,
but I was like, I don't
that's
really
the
know
only
how to
reason
utilize it yet.
So, and I see some people do some really cool stuff on TikTok, like really cool stuff. I'm just like, I ain't got time to snap my fingers and have a change of clothing. Like, I don't do that. So, so technically there's 3 social media platforms. Let's talk about YouTube, because YouTube has become more of a social media platform than it once was. Once upon a time, YouTube was a place to upload and watch videos. Literally, that's it. Now there's status updates. There's live videos. You can chat with people. I mean, there are so many different features within YouTube. It's kind of cool that I use YouTube. I mean, you and I both love YouTube. That's where we live. Like, we both have a ton of subscribers, a ton of minutes watched each month. It's great, but I will be fully honest with you. I have not leveraged all the cool new tools they have. I don't do the status updates, but I think you have to have maybe X amount of subscribers to be able to unlock some of these features. But YouTube, obviously owned by Google, because Google Plus died, so I think they're putting their assets here in the YouTube's. Like, we live in a video world, people. YouTubers, baby. Vlogs, I guess, is what you call them, right? And then here's an opportunity for people to leverage a different type of platform using video, but also using your traditional social media tools. But I have not used many of them yet, but I find that it's becoming, like, in your YouTube app at least, like, you have 2 sort of like tabs you can go to now, and you can see all those status updates. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't tend to like even really pay much attention. I have seen them over the last year or so when that feature kind of came through. To me, I'm there to still like consume video a lot of times, and then that's kind of the point. I think YouTube to me has always been, this is your chance to own your own TV network,
yep,
your own TV shows. Like, I mean, you basically get to do everything you want on there, and hopefully it's beneficial to your business. But it's also, to me, I think it's the most difficult platform out of all of them,
yeah,
because if you're talking on a video, me specifically, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, something like that, I have to be very sure of what I'm saying when I'm saying it, because it opens up a ton of like exposure liability for me. Like, I say one thing out of the 10 minutes where people will pick on that, and that could be the case where, like, all of a sudden everything else gets torn down. So to me, I think it's really tough, I think, to utilize it in a way that is going to be consistently positive for your business, because you have to always be almost perfect in a sense. I'll bring up kind of one point, and I think you'll probably add to this as well, is that to me, and why I kind of shifted to YouTube in my business, is that it is I think arguably outside of Google itself, which you get benefit as well, and then Amazon, it's the 3rd biggest search engine.
Yeah,
so basically people are utilizing it for everything. So non-branded type of searches. So for me, creating a ton of content and having the ability to tag both inside my video and outside of it on the back end, like just different search terms or different topics that I talked about in a 10-minute video, that has a ton of just long-term positivity to me in terms of like getting people to watch those videos even 3 or 4 or 5 years from now. I've only been on YouTube for I think about a year and a half or so, but like even if I look back, I also still get views like in my first 10, 15 videos, like consistent views. So it's beneficial because all of that content library is constantly getting watched even when you're producing new ones.
Yeah, 100%. I think YouTube is the most valuable social media platform on the planet, and you hit it because it's the third largest search engine, I think, or maybe it's second. I think it's
it's Amazon's so much different.
Yeah, I think it's second. I think it's second to Google, but I think also, I mean, YouTube is Google. Like if you Google a term like XXX pre-workout, whatever, video results come up, right? Video is a separate tab. It comes up in your actual main page stuff. They pull in video from YouTube. They pull in news sources from different news things. So, like, if Josh Shaw does a topic that's relevant, like Avocare restructures their MLM thing that was a big thing a couple of months ago or a couple of weeks ago, somebody types in Avocare, lawsuit or whatever, Josh Shaw video might come up in the first page of Google. And that's there, and it's going to be there forever. That's the thing. Like, your Facebook statuses don't show up in Google. Your Facebook videos can at some point show up in Google, but Google's going to obviously put precedent on their own. They own the video as soon as you upload. Like, it's their stuff now. So that's why I love it. I love it because you have an opportunity to not only like kill it in YouTube, you have an opportunity to be within Google, but I also love it, and I think this is a common mistake brands make, is they don't respond to every comment, or they don't engage with consumers in the comment section. I get notifications every day, like 30 to 50 notifications of people commenting on my stuff. Good or bad, I make it a point to respond to every single one, because I think it's super important for brand building. Plus, if you win somebody over, they're going to hit that sub button. And the more subscribers you have, obviously, the more notifications go out when your new content streams. You become more valuable, at least me and you, we become more valuable to brands who want to work with us. But for brands out there, like if you have a new product launch and you want to do a product breakdown, talk about it. Like, talk about that product on there. Break it down, because inevitably someone's going to search about your product at some point, because they're going to see a social media ad on Facebook and be like, "What's this about?" And they're going to type in brand pre-workout, and your video might come up, and it might help explain something to them that they didn't quite understand, and now that leads to a conversion. And that video will live forever. It doesn't go away. It's basically a video that's 10 years old can always be fresh. If it's a relevant topic and a relevant video and gets a lot of views, it's always going to show up, which is super cool. And not to mention, like, you can monetize your YouTube platform through ad placements if you want to. I mean, candidly, I make like $200 a month now on YouTube. It's not a lot of money, but it's like cool to have, right? I mean, I put it back into whatever. But I mean, that's the ultimate goal. Like, if you don't care, you can make some ad revenue by allowing people within that industry to advertise on your stuff. But I think it's a great place to engage with consumers, because people who engage in videos, like, they watched your video. So, like, if your video is 10 minutes long, they spend 10 minutes of their day wanting to know about what the fuck you're talking about. So they're interested in whatever it is that you're selling or you're providing, versus a Twitter where you're doing 280 characters and you can read in 3 seconds or whatever it is, right? So I think YouTube, and it's amazing how many brands I reach out to, Josh, be like, "Do you guys have like a YouTube channel?" And they do, but they got like 2 videos. And it's like, what are we doing? Video is hot right now. You should hire a videographer. That's why we talk about the brand all the time, but Ghost, like, they leverage video and they do this build a brand thing on YouTube, and their YouTube reality TV show is watched by a shit ton of people. It promotes the authenticity of their brand and everything about it. Like, they have done a phenomenal job of leveraging that platform, better than anybody else in the space.
I think that most of the time, at least from the conversations I have with brands, a lot of times they're intimidated by it because they believe that it needs to be like this perfect production. Like, they need to be out there producing the next Amazon special or the next HBO great show. Like, literally, a lot of times people are watching the most popular videos. A lot of times they're like very much shot on your camera phone or on your iPhone. It's like they don't really have mics. They don't have like backdrops. They don't have all this kind of stuff. It's the storytelling or the content, like, what value are you giving to your audience over the production value?
Right.
This isn't you going out and building the next Fox Studios. This is literally like, tear it down to storytelling or value, and you could create that with anything. You don't need to have like your own videographers and tens of thousands of dollars in equipment, and that stuff obviously helps. I mean, that's stuff that you build on over time. But like, I think people forget, like, they want to get to a point Z when they're only at point A, and they want to skip all those other steps. Like, you still have to put in the time and put in the work. So for me, a lot of times it comes down to, like, there's this level of like intimidation or fear that comes with YouTube because of the things we talked about before. Where like, it is very tough to put yourself out there or your brand out there, and for 10 minutes or maybe a couple minutes, or put a bunch of videos out there that people can pick apart. It's a lot easier for people to pick apart videos, long videos, over you making a post and you being able to edit it real quick or whatever. Like, when that's up there live, it's live unless you take it down. So it's not, you're not able to scrub it. You made some typos or you made some, this or that or whatever. So especially if you're not catching those things when you're doing the editing process. And that's probably another kind of point to even bring up around YouTube, is that there is some extra time that goes into it. So a lot of times people are intimidated from that, as well as like you have to edit video as well. And there's a lot of other things that go into the upload process that maybe takes time. That's a little bit more, kind of tough than just like doing 280 characters on Twitter. Yeah,
invest more now to gain a lot more later. Kind of is what I think with YouTube. Yeah. I mean, they're and then the last thing on YouTube, which is super valuable, is there's a little button, Josh, that says share, which gives you a link that you can then post into Facebook and LinkedIn and all those other platforms we're talking about, and it'll actually populate an image, and it looks like the video is part of that platform. So like, your videos can be shared and viewed, and just like, there's a lot of good stuff about YouTube. So we talked about 3 platforms that are underutilized within the space. The 2 major platforms, which we're not going to spend the most amount of time on because everybody knows about them, are Facebook and Instagram. And they're one and the same. One is essentially, we'll talk about Instagram first. Instagram being just a visual platform for the most part, right? It's also an opportunity for brands to get DMs. And the story feature is still fairly new within Instagram, but it's very popular. It's an easy way for brands to promote. Like, if you're not on Instagram and you're a brand in the space, like, I don't get it. I mean, I don't understand why you wouldn't. But it's also very difficult to reach people organically. And you also need to understand that a lot of brands in this space do this thing called where they purchase followers, which I hate. Like, I hate it. But if you ever want to call bullshit on a brand, there are different tools out there in which you can type in their username and it'll tell you how quickly they got followers. And if you see they went from like 5,000 followers to 20,000 followers in a day, they just bought 15,000 followers. So you can call bullshit on some of these brands. But the thing is, like, your reach, and we talked about this earlier, on both Facebook and Instagram, your organic reach has been purposely driven down by those platforms because they want you to pay. And I don't blame them for it. Like, Facebook built these platforms or own these platforms to get them somewhere. If they want my money because I want to reach more people, then I'm going to pay. But there's value in paying. Like, there are, man, you've seen some of these ad budgets for some of these companies, and what they put into Facebook alone is just like massive amounts of money that people that are listening to this podcast could only dream that they could make in a year. Like, they are huge budgets. But if you have to be there, it's a pay-to-play platforms, but you have to do it to be successful, or at least to get over that $10 million mark within this space. Like, if you're a supplement company, like, you need to be advertising. I believe, like, you can't just sit back and expect word of mouth and your D2C site to go organically. Like, you need to be advertising on these platforms.
Yeah, unless you're slow and steady type of a thing where you're just like, you're not really worried about speed or anything like that. I mean, yeah, we're talking around, the pay-to-play aspect of it. Facebook, and then obviously for those that are not aware, they also own Instagram. They have the kind of the best ad tools, I guess, in terms of like social media, in terms of how you can like just hyper-target kind of everything, which is interesting to me. Like, common people, maybe people that are not, they don't work around social media a lot, or maybe they don't necessarily pay much attention to the business perspective of Facebook or Instagram or any of these social medias. When all that kind of stuff went down with like Cambridge Analytica and all that kind of stuff around, like, people were so surprised at the level of detail that a company like Facebook had on them, and then was also selling to other kind of companies. And it kind of surprised me, at least, because I thought, that's how they make their money.
Yeah.
And the point of it is like, they're acquiring a ton of user data, both from on the platform, off the platform. They're kind of putting it all together in a very unique way that specifically knows us better than we know ourselves, and knows our drivers, influences, all those types of things. It's constantly listening to us on our microphone. We've mentioned this on tons of podcasts where we start talking about things, and then it does show up within 20 minutes on our streams. We know that's happening because that's obviously something that they are leveraging with brands. But for whatever reason, people were surprised by all of this. But if you're on the brand side, you know how powerful these ad tools are, and that's part of the reason why you're okay paying for it in a lot of cases, because if you really want to hyper target certain specific geographical areas or certain attributes of a person or the behaviors, you're able to do that in a way that's very special to the Facebook platform. So it kind of goes with both ways. It's like if you're willing to build your brand digitally, you have to be okay with also spending money on ads if you want to kind of speed up the process a little bit. You could just try to go word of mouth, old school, and try to do that, but it's going to be a very slow build unless you have something special that kind of hits, that is more shareable, or something that becomes viral that has nothing to do with you actually having to pay for that ad to get some extra exposure. So that's my case in terms of like these kind of big ones of Facebook and Instagram. I know for Facebook, for me, I like the aspect of there's a shareable kind of part of it, which is much different than Instagram, because Instagram, like if you like something, a video, or like it's very hard for you to share it in a way that you either have to screenshot or you have to do these things. They've tried their best to try to add some extra tools to do that. You could share it sometimes on your stories or something like that. But with a Facebook, if you have your posts open to everybody and somebody catches it, all of a sudden they share it. All of a sudden it gets 10,000 shares. You didn't have to pay for any of that reach, which is pretty unique comparable to some of the other platforms. Maybe Twitter has a similar kind of shareability, and then LinkedIn does in a sense as well. But Facebook is kind of the king of shareable content. If you think about the social medias.
Yeah, and similar with YouTube, like there are things to think about within Facebook and Instagram too when you're posting. So if you're sharing like a link from your webpage and you have a featured image, make sure that featured image is obviously formatted for those platforms. Make sure you limit the text, because if there's more text in your image, Facebook will say we're not going to show it to as many people. It's what they do. There's a lot of things to learn about them. So totally understand why it's intimidating. All these platforms are super intimidating. Thankfully for guys like Josh and I, like we grew up with a computer in our laps. So it kind of forced us. I mean, I did digital marketing for 3 years before launching FI, so I was in charge of all that stuff. I learned these things. For the Olympia this year, I did a geo-targeted ad through Fitness Informant. Like anybody who walked into that convention center, we pixeled them, and they would eventually see our video, or they could have had they been on the platform. So pixel is another thing. If you're a brand listening, like and you're smaller brand, you don't know how this works. Like there's a thing called there's a thing called a pixel. You put on your website. You can retarget and remarket to those people. You can grab all the information from those people who come to your website, find an audience that looks just like them. So that's why Facebook is super powerful. It's probably the most powerful platform in terms of data collection. By far the most powerful platform in terms of data collection. So I think, like, obviously Facebook, some people are like, Facebook's dead. You're just down by Aaron Sigerman. Aaron Sigerman will be the first person to stand up and say Facebook is definitely not dead. And that's why I spend whatever he spends, which is crazy high. And there's a lot of cool things as a brand you can do on Facebook, and not to like sit on the Redcon One train here, but like what Aaron does, and you probably have seen this, is like their sponsored athletes that they have. They're also having ads come out through their pages for Redcon One. So you see like Luke Sandow or George the Bull, like they're doing the same ads that Redcon One is doing, but it reaches a completely different audience because they have different followers. So Aaron's done it better than anybody in terms of Facebook. But another brand too, like Alpha Line is a brand that I work with on the Fitness Informant side. They blew up on Facebook, like all these ads, and they're crazy marketing, but it works, and people then became aware. And here's the other thing about advertising on Facebook and Instagram and these social media platforms. Not just to the end consumer, but to retail outlets. So like there might be retail outlets who have never heard of your brand before. If you're a supplement company and now all of a sudden your ads show up on Facebook and now they start looking into you and wondering what you're about, and next thing you know, they're submitting a contact form request through the website. Next thing you know, you're in their retail stores or on their .com. So to not do it, I think, is a huge mistake. I don't understand why. I don't understand why brands don't spend money on marketing, because that's really, unless they're okay making what they make based on word of mouth. Totally cool. Not gonna knock you if that's your business philosophy and that's what you want to do. Like NutraBio for the longest time didn't do anything in terms of advertising. Now they have a new marketing director there, thanks to this podcast. No, I'm kidding. But I mean, part of this podcast. But they're, you'll see them start to do things that they hadn't done before because they know they need to do it. So, dude, we could have spent like 2 hours on this topic because I'm thinking about things about LinkedIn right now and YouTube, and it's interesting. But like, if you guys have any questions on it, again, we're not super experts in these areas, but we know enough about the platforms that we were able to grow our own brands on them or through them. Obviously, feel free to reach out via our Facebook page, which is 2 Guys 1 Shaker Cup. This podcast is on iTunes, Spotify. You can watch it on YouTube. Great social media platform. It's Jay Shaw. Your Instagram handle again, is it at Joshua Shaw?
Yeah, it's just I basically use most of, but just my name.
Your name is the brand.
Yeah, the name is the brand. It's kind of synonymous with it at this point, so it's just easier for me to do that as well. Because I mean, there's certain platforms like Facebook or LinkedIn where like I do have a company page as well on those platforms because they have that. But most of the things that are kind of like Instagrams or Twitters or whatever. I tend to just use my normal name because people are searching, and that's just easy for that on Google search results.
Love it. And go ahead, if this is your first time listening, you've been listening for a while, give us a review. Helps out the algorithm through the social media platforms. Yeah, through the podcast platforms. And we all need to start a Kickstarter campaign to get Josh Shaw t-shirts made. I need like a little character shirt, like a cartoon character of Josh Shaw with a backwards hat, and all I want on a black tee, plain black VT, is that with your autograph, and I think it'll sell out.
I would love that. I mean, if we could make that happen, I don't know if any people that own maybe a screen printing company that watches this or listens to this, hey, let's do it. I think we could sell at least 2. One to Ryan and maybe one.
I'm not paying for it. I'm getting comped one. I'm getting comped one for this podcast. That's what I'm getting. All right, until next time, Josh Shaw, Ryan Buckeye, we appreciate you guys tuning in this week.